The number is 541-346-0645 for anybody that wants to keep us company. We're going to get settled and play a little tune from Peregrine. Peregrine. I just realized what this was. Okay, let's go.
The sentence for the God of the
Yes, it's the December 13th version of Anarchy Radio. A little bit of Kevin Tucker there and his friends. Where are you, Kevin? Catherine was going to be here tonight. She was aboard the train in Portland, but it didn't leave Portland. It clipped the back end of a semi just minutes into the trip, and she was stuck on the train for 3 hours while they tried to figure out if they could safely proceed, if they could go south on the rails. But they came back to the station, and by then it was too late to figure out how to get down here in time. So we're going to get back on the regular second Tuesday of the month next month, January. Oh, it's the coldest, darkest time of the year. Well, literally next week, a week from now, is winter solstice. And let's see, a week from tomorrow, a year ago tomorrow, I'm trying to say, Ted Kaczynski was transferred from the maximum joint, the federal joint in southern Colorado, to a federal prison hospital in North Carolina. So he's survived just about a year, almost exactly. And he was kind of signing off. He didn't think he'd be around much longer, but he still is. Let's see. We might have a call. We might have Artemis or somebody else, and/or somebody else. As Carl says, 541-346-0645. Well, a little more on Firmageddon. All the fir trees in Oregon in particular are dying off. This is in the news Sunday. 1.1 million acres of dead firs, worst ever in the 75 years of that sort of recording. Quite the blight. And it's not the only tree species being stressed. We do have a call already, I do believe.
Yeah, we have Todd, and I think he wants to talk about AI art.
Oh, all right.
Let me get the right buttons. Okay, here we go.
Gotta have that. Hello, Todd.
Hey, John. How are you?
Good. What's happening?
Well, I have been. I'm sure. I don't know how closely you've been following this, but in the last few months, these AI art algorithms have just been accelerating really rapidly.
Yeah.
And over the last, I would just say, in the last 3 weeks, you're really starting to see an organized backlash by visual artists. And some of them are, interestingly, rallying the Luddites. There was a big thread on Twitter today by this artist, Molly Crabapple, that has tens of thousands of likes, lots of people commenting, where she's making the argument that, the Luddites are really not something to be ashamed of, that this was an organized movement of skilled people who felt they were, being marginalized and their livelihoods were threatened. And we're also looking at something more profound. And she's basically rallying visual artists to do the same.
Wow.
To say that these AI algorithms need to be stopped, and that people should not deal with companies that use them. And I'm just seeing lots of videos on YouTube, because there are these artists who have communities, and they're kind of rallying, and there are people and it's sad too. There's a lot of people talking about suicide, if you can believe it, giving up their art.
Man,
it's really getting to a point. And so I just wanted to let you know that, and think about maybe there's an opportunity here. And here's where it comes in, where I've been channeling your writing a little bit, is I've been arguing with people on Twitter a little bit, and I've been telling them, maybe your stand shouldn't be at the level of art. Maybe you need to step back and say, maybe part of the problem is that art itself is a little compromised. And the ease that the computers have in mimicking your art maybe says something, and it's hard for them to see this, but about some of the inadequacy of visual art.
Wow.
And maybe the fact that computers are taking down this kind of the one part of symbolization, which was supposed to be impenetrable, is a moment for people to think more profoundly about these deeper questions about civilization and symbolism. So I wanted to see if you thought maybe there's a way for people who are interested in those ideas to kind of use this moment to help people to not make their stand only at the level of art.
Wow, that gets into deeper waters. Yeah, it suggests that could be on order as well at some point. But of course, the obvious part is where is individual creativity if the machine does it, and maybe can't distinguish that product from what you're doing. And there you get into the second part of what you bring up here: representation itself. Is that when has that really carried the ball? I mean, it's you see all immemorial art can save us, and art like the word earth, the three middle letters are art, as if that's going to save the earth, and it hasn't. Of course, it just deepens the problems, and on one level, that's for sure. Yeah, that's it's something else. It's really, and right hand in hand with that is this chat GPT. You probably noticed that as well. There
Oh
was,
yeah.
there was a piece in the New York Times on Friday, the brilliance and weirdness of chat GPT, which can write jokes, essays, texts, and so forth. So not only the artists, but the writers are up against it. Once you get this so-called machine learning going, it isn't actually learning, but it's it produces something it's used,
Yeah.
and it tells you something about the culture, about what's going on with that. It's as you
Well,
say.
it is, John. I think it is getting a little scary because I know for a long time, and I've listened to your program and you're right. People have said, well, the AI, it's not going to be as successful as we think. It's going to have these limitations. It's only, mimicking. And I think part of the reason this chat GPT is unsettling along with the AI art is people are starting to come to the conclusions that it is novel, that it comes up with novel solutions very quickly, and that it has a certain intelligence. They don't quite know how to frame it because it's still like an elaborate, it's still just a linear regression. You know what I mean? It's just at the end of the day, it's not intelligence. It's just solving a multivariable formula, but it does seem to have this novelty to it, and I think people are scared like they've never been.
Well, yeah, the people that push that are always tempted to make all these claims and promises. I mean, but as you say, it's really the basic algorithmic level. It knows patterns. It can mimic patterns, reproduce them, and manipulate them to some degree, for sure. And then you get something like what, like say a dumb TV show. It doesn't take incredible individuality to write that sort of stuff. So, and once again, it tells you about the thinness and the dumbness of the culture, and not just that, but deeper stuff than that.
Here's where it gets scary. I agree with you that it's nothing it produces is beautiful or right necessarily or better than humans in isolation. But what people are starting to realize is they can kind of link things up. One of the things that it does very well is it writes computer code, which is interesting. It writes computer code better than a human language, if you can believe it. Like it developed a knack for that. And so what that means is that it's going to accelerate the degree to which people can write complex software, because they're just going to kind of, if that makes sense, like give the computer each individual step, tell it to write the code for that step. And so in a couple of hours, you could write an elaborate program that would have taken you much longer, if that makes sense. So I don't think it doesn't like have this mind of its own that can like take a problem and solve the whole thing yet.
No.
But it's going to accelerate everything, I think, very quickly.
Yeah, it's part of the current. It's part of the accelerating thing, and it affects everything. It's the speed of it all, and the and people are used to the shortcuts. It's we're supposed to be, well, we are conditioned to various degrees to make that leap. It's just it stands in for what was something more particular and specific, and now it's becoming standardized and like everything else. So where can you see the difference? I mean, and one of my favorite quotes, as you probably have heard anyway, Alan Turing in 1950, writing in the journal Mind, he predicted in 50 years, which we're already past, of course, that the problem won't be so much that machines can more or less copy us, but the distance between, but we'll be copying the machine. We'll be, it's not the machine. It's the poverty of a more standardized culture under the reign of computers. That's what he was afraid of, and that's exactly what's happened. I think it's to a large degree.
And I think what is interesting is I've been kind of captivated at the way that people are using the algorithms, because what is interesting is that the AI art algorithms actually do give you some more profound insights into nature, oddly enough, because in order to produce the AI, the algorithms have to learn about the way light moves and space and microscopic things. And you would think that it would be an opportunity for people to learn more about themselves or nature or physics and kind of, find out the things that the AI is trying to teach you about the world or about, nature, if that makes sense. But instead, people are just using it to make like advanced computer, silly graphics of anime and video game art. And it's produced these elaborate, one of the things the AI art does and the way people use it, which is interesting, is the AI art has a lot of trouble. And I know this is a theme for simplicity, for silence. It's not Zen. Every AI art uses every single inch of the page with these elaborate, arabesque, geometries. It's always expanding. It can't deal with simplicity.
Right.
And so that's kind of the way humans are going to be. Humans are going to be, and the AI art are just going to work, in this type of production to just produce mass and mass of content and material. It's going to get out of control, I think, very quickly.
Well, it's going that way. I mean, and Adorno referred to it as the bustle, the busyness. You just have to produce and conquer everything, and the directness is gone. The way you commune with nature is to commune with nature, not through a machine. I mean, that's anyway, that it gets into a lot of interesting things. Todd, I appreciate your call very much. It's a great way to kick off the show here.
Yeah, and I hope you will think more about. I do think there's an opportunity now for this to think more, to expose people to this critique of art itself.
Yeah, there you go. Let's hope. Let's push that. Take care, man. Well, let's see. Got a little more environmental stuff we can sneak in here. The Keystone Pipeline. You remember that? Getting the oil down from Canada, the worst kind of it, actually, from the tar sands in particular. It's perfectly safe. Well, all these people whining and wringing their hands about. Well, this was a story on Friday. The Keystone Pipeline system was shut down by an operator, TC Energy, after an oil spill released an estimated 14,000 barrels into a creek in Washington County, Kansas. You knew it would happen, and it's probably happening more than we know about. Boy, the mass extinction news. Very recent UN report talking about this. What's in the news a little bit now is the Montreal Climate Summit dealing with, it's called Conference of the Parties of the Convention of Biological Diversity, or COP15, unlike the other COP27. This is, it's all about biodiversity. And some of the writing on this, it's going to be just so momentous. The fate of the entire living world will be determined in Montreal, Canada. What nonsense. And that follows a recent UN report that showed not a single target from the summit's previous 2010 agreement has been met. Not even one. Just like the other COP thing, the even bigger than this one, and even at least as phony. Yet some people just eat it up. They're just, oh boy, it's going to be so important. It's just it's monumental fraud is what it really is. Except it isn't fraudulent in the sense that you can find out the results. So have they met any of these lofty goals, these targeted cuts in emission and so forth? No, never. So it's quite insane. And party to this from the International Union for Conservation of Nature's updated red list of threatened species. There's a mouthful. Anyway, this the IUCN talking about some 1,550 species that are right on the verge of extinction. And to switch gears here a little bit, this whole thing about work, the value of work, the meaning of work in your life, all that is still hanging around. And Todd was making the point that perhaps this opens on to deeper questions, a deeper questioning. Well, this is from RC from the Daily Mail last Thursday. Almost 250,000 young people, this is the UK, currently not working, say they never plan to get a job, so forth. Poll of 18 to 24-year-olds found that a staggering 227,000 youngsters currently out of a job or not studying claim they never intend to enter the labor market. Uh-oh, that's pretty significant. Hate it when that happens, or at least some people hate it. Yeah, and well, let's see. One other environmental thing. From yesterday's New York Times, India puts growth before climate because they've got to compete in the world system, and power, energy is the prime value. Well, I was last in India 10 years ago, 2010. In many of the more northern parts of India, to say the least, couldn't breathe the air. It's way worse a decade later. Now it's just literally, you can't breathe the air. You can't let children be breathing that air, for example, and not only kids. It's kind of staggering. This is what the machine produces and thrives on. And another UK thing. This is also via Richard in the Daily Mail last Thursday. UK is worst in the world for diabetes rise in the young. Type 2 diabetes have quadrupled since 1990. Quadrupled. That's not that long ago. Worst in the world. So India isn't the only problematic place. And the work thing, a little more on that. Let's see, this is from Money Watch. And the findings from the Federal Reserve of Boston, their economics department, a trend that they've been puzzling over for decades. Why have so many men, this is the US, of course, why have so many men given up on the idea of holding down a job? Yeah, the name of the piece, why have so many American men given up on work? Yeah, it's corresponding to that piece from the UK. Yeah, that's kind of major news. And I don't know, possibly somewhat related. This is from the New York Times last Friday. American men are unsatisfied with how many friends they have, a survey found. The uptick in loneliness predates the pandemic, but seems to have accelerated in the past several years. So giving up on work and but having few friends, that's been noticed since the 80s, the downward trend of people socializing, not just men, but the average number of friends people have taking a big drop. And, in fairly short order. Let's see. I forgot who sent me this, but there's a new film from England, All the Lonely People. Yet again, more on isolation and loneliness. New film shining the light on the hidden pandemic of loneliness. Features stories from people in Shropshire and Birmingham, the middle part of England, a little north of London. And once again, the health effects. UK's Heather Osborne said, researchers say loneliness can be as bad for you as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It has an impact on heart disease and other things. Well, here in the era of mass shootings, it was reported today 3 dead northwest of Rome, 6 dead in rural Australia, speaking of mass shootings. Well, they got a ways to catch up to the US of A. 600 mass shootings in the US so far this year. Well, less than a month ago, but, and that's, again, it's defined by when 4 or more people are killed with firearms. Yeah. We had a wonderful evening at Sam Bond's. Not the last Sunday of the month, because I think the last Sunday of the month is Christmas, or very close to it. So we got that Sunday evening, and Fern Thompson gave a great presentation, very interesting. Her experiences in education, including alternate education projects. Very good discussion. Yeah, that was a winner. We continue on with the monthly so-called book club. She co-authored a book on the nature of the university in a time of crisis. And we're going to go back to the last Sunday of the month, Sunday evening of the month in January, and we don't know who will be the speaker, but there will be, I'm sure a good one. Well, let's see. We could put in a music break about now.
We got some Marian Faithful.
Yeah.
Born in 1938, a good year for the Reich. She could not participate. She didn't have the right, for she was fatherless in the fatherland. Now it's 1966, Andrew's up to all his tricks. And when Brian Jones is near, Nico doesn't feel so queer. She's in the shit, though she's innocent. Yesterday is gone, there's just today, no tomorrow. Yesterday is gone, there's just today, no more. Now it's Andy Warhol's time, Mystic 60s on a dime. Though she kinda likes Lou Reed, doesn't really have the need. Already in the shit, though she's innocent. And now she doesn't know what it is she wants and where she wants to go. And will Delon be still a car? Yes, she's in the shit, though she is innocent. Yesterday is gone, There's just today, no tomorrow. Yesterday's gone. There's just today, no more. Yesterday's gone. There's just today, no tomorrow. Yesterday's gone. There's just today, no more. La da 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 da, 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 la da 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 da. La da 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 da, la da da, la da da, la.
Very unfaithful, yes, indeed. Well, there's a series going on at BBC called Burn Wild. I don't know how many people have heard of that, but the producer from the UK was over here, and I caught a couple of episodes yesterday. The first one sort of by accident. I thought I was getting episode 5, but I actually got episode 7. The whole thing has the number 5 on it. So if you're looking for a certain one, here we go. We got a call.
Yeah, we have Artemis on the line.
Okay. Thanks, Carl. Hello, my friend.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Hey, it's been a minute.
What's that?
I said it's been a minute since I last called in.
Yes. You're no longer a regular.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I wanted to give a call, not just about what we emailed, but Todd touched on a lot, and you mentioned the ChatGPT AI. Just today, giving my final, a student says, I want to turn in my paper. I said, all right, you were done quick. Shows it to me, and I'm like, this is really good. I noticed some really, some strong structural problems, but I'm like, these are common. He said, oh, yeah, I didn't write it. An AI did. I'm just messing. I have my actual one. I looked at it. I couldn't tell.
Wow.
And he did it. He just put in the prompt for the essay that I had posted.
It's that simple. Wow.
But yeah, it's a free website. You just sign in and you put in any prompt. And he said 5 paragraphs, which was my expectation. Cite it this way, and it did it.
Ooh, there it is, folks. Available to all, huh? Jeez. Yeah. And what grade is this?
These were my seniors.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so it's funny. I made a joke. I was like, oh, God forbid I make you handwrite this. And they're like, you couldn't read my handwriting. I haven't written anything in years. I was like, oh, stop. Don't tell me that.
Yeah.
Because my students are 1-to-1 with computers, meaning every student has a Chromebook that's given to them. And we are encouraged to have them use it because I can only print X amount of copies in a month. So it's like they force me to do it.
Yeah.
To use it. So it's crazy. We had an interesting discussion on the use of technology and that stuff in the classroom after everyone was done. And it's really nice to be able to have that with outside of political with my students.
Yeah.
You know? So it was a really cool situation. I had one student say, this is just the future of writing. And someone turned and said, weren't you the person that complained about AI stealing art? How is this any different? And he said, well, it just is. But I'm like, no, it's not. I love that argument. It just is.
Yeah. Well, that's the bottom line to everything, isn't it? Really, the inertia. You can have all the arguments, but there it is. Yeah, that's the sad part of it.
Yeah. So I was thinking about that, and then he mentioned it. I was like, I might as well too add to the cynicism. Another thing is I appreciate you mentioning the Anti-Technology is Not Dead zine that dropped. I want to point out that that's from Civ Fox distro. They're an anti-civ, anti-colonial outlet, and they're awesome. I curated all the essays, but they were awesome enough to turn it into a zine form and distribute it. So shout out to them.
Yes, it was great to make that discovery. I hadn't heard of that project. Yeah, nice job on that. It's lovely to have something so strong and jump out.
Mm-hmm. I was just surprised to see it's almost like old style artwork and design. The aesthetic of it reminded me of old zines that I have. So I thought it was really cool to see that. So again, I wanted to thank you for giving that shout out. It's they appreciated it, and I appreciated it as well.
Very good stuff, man. Yeah.
And I also think you might find this funny. I've been reading some old Green Anarchy copies, and I was reading, I think it's number 18 that focuses on class struggle. And it was during my off period, and I wanted to send it to a friend, but they don't have a phone, so I just used the school copier to make copies.
Sweet.
Yeah, and I was like, hopefully no one can see this, but I mean,
good work.
Thank you. So yeah, I shot you the email a couple days ago. I've had some friends that are like, let's start just a general kind of radical environmentalist, primitivist book club, get people interested. And so I wanted your input. I've been talking to Kevin, and I had this idea of your people's history of civilization would be easily one of them, because I think it's one of the most accessible but non-dogmatic primitivist texts. Because some people, they write very like, oh, here's all the assumptions you should be operating on. And you just, like, it's people's history. It's meant to be accessible. And then Ishmael by Daniel Quinn. That's a personal cult favorite of mine. And students read it. I have it on my bookshelf. I've had 2 students read it this semester, and they love it.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah.
I won't, you probably heard, if you did hear at the top, the reason why Kathleen isn't here, the train accident. So she was tuned into that question. What books would you recommend to get going on a reading group thing like that? And unfortunately, she's not here tonight to answer that. But yeah, that's there's some very good stuff out there. Quite a lot of it, really. It's oh gosh, I'm blanking on the guy who died in the late 90s. He wrote Paul Shepard. I
have come home to the Pleistocene.
Right.
To Speak of Wildness by Tucker, which it made a lot of things clear to me, because the wildness versus wilderness thing was confusing, and Tucker made it really clear. So having that as like a follow-up essay, and then even having things like Thoreau, because even in Green Anarchy, I think it was a collective one. It was like reclaiming Thoreau for anarchism, like his essay Walking. Some of the meditative.
Yes.
I find super important to myself.
Yes. Oh, a big fave of mine. Yeah.
So I don't know. I didn't want to put you on the spot to be like, now pick some books. And it's unfortunate that she can't. I heard that. I hope she was okay, and that no one was hurt.
Yeah. It was just a little upsetting, and she didn't want to miss the show, but she wasn't injured. In fact, nobody was injured.
That's good.
Yeah. I hope that gets going. And I would imagine people who are interested will be recommending stuff.
Yeah, that's
probably right away, or more or less.
Yeah, it's really interesting that suddenly I've just found other particularly queer anarcho-primitivists all of a sudden. Some of them have been following some of my writing. They listened to the Dr. Steve's podcast and sent it alongside Dr. Steve's resources to her professor, who was preaching the old 12,000 years Clovis culture. Everyone was Clovis somehow across the whole hemisphere. And she sent my podcast. And the professor was like, oh, well, I have a master's. I know what I'm talking about.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was like, send me something about the professor. It turns out they go to the university that's 5 minutes away. I was like, whoa, you go there. And so we were connecting, and we're actually hoping to start like a zine journal inspired mostly by Species Trader and Green Anarchy, called Plastic in Utero, a little bit of a Nirvana reference, but also the horrors of plastic is in people's uteruses and infants before they're born. Right? So we're hoping to do something like that. Hopefully get started when I get a winter break. Hopefully get something like that going.
Wow, that's marvelous. I love the wording on that.
I'm excited, and we also have some really sympathetic indigenous friends who are hoping that, as Green Anarchy did, again to reference, is the indigenous resistance. They're really excited to try and get. They're always interested. They see like anarcho-primitivism in their view of as a non-native centered re-indigenization. And so when I told him about anarcho-primitivism, he was like, "Yo, like that's what people that are not my people need. You know, it's a story, it's a history that people can connect to." And so he's excited to be a part of the project. It's all suddenly coming together very quickly.
Wow.
It's almost overwhelming. I'm like, oh God, it's moving.
Dandy news. Yeah. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. That's great.
Yeah. All right. I won't take up any more of your time, and I appreciate. Hopefully, next time she's on, or if she can email me, you can email me. I think getting any more book recommendations that I might be overlooking would be awesome. So.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. Take care.
Right. You too.
Bye-bye. Wow. A couple of super high quality calls. Well, I was saying something about the Burn Wild series, which starts out talking about the ELF. There was an interview with Joseph DB, who just came in from the cold. And Fern and I were hopeful about this because the two people that were doing it seemed to have a genuine curiosity about all these things. I don't know. They weren't super informed about some things, but then anyway, I happened to, by accident, listen to episode 7, and I don't want to get into a bunch of weeds on this, but Chelsea Gerlach, this episode was a kind of love fest between her and her FBI prosecutor who sent her away for 9 years. And I had a lot of trouble with that. How wonderful, how marvelous to have the dialogue. And I don't think, certainly not in this episode, and I'm betting that not in any other subsequent episodes, did they touch on the fact that there are people where Chelsea Gerlach lives who are not real keen, not advising toward a loving embrace of somebody who ratted out other people. That somehow went missing in the story of her. And this is an issue that's, I think that's died down. I don't think there were actually physical fights over this maybe a year or two ago or something like that. And is it a good idea to trust somebody who's a proven snitch and who doesn't have any problem with having been a snitch? Have you ever heard of security culture? It's not like one assumes that, all of these people or any of these people are doing illegal stuff, but, just in general, how does that work? If you're a nice liberal, then what's the problem? Why aren't you down with her? And, that's kind of ignorant, it seems to me. And one of the fault lines of this Burn Wild thing is right there. The one I was kind of looking for I was advised to listen to it is episode 5, which is about Eugene, the Whitaker, Ickes, and the Unabomber. I'm in there too. And I would have to say, I got to say what I wanted to say, but the overall thing here is not much ideas. It's more People magazine style journalism, this audio series. And as I said, the question of violence, it's what runs through this is a kind of obsession with the question of violence. And I said, and I think it is a very serious question. You want to avoid a slippery slope, like justifying violence, and that whole thing is always on the table, it seems to me, or it should be. But is that the only question? Well, in terms of the Unabomber, and I've made it plain that I do not advocate sending bombs in the mail, but also, were those people so innocent when you see what's going down? And, so much life expires every minute. which is, again, not to say blowing up 3 people was a great idea, especially via the mail. Anyway, there's a lot to that, but they were kind of shocked that any violence would ever be justified. And the whole question of defining violence, I don't personally define that as including property damage, targeted property damage, but some people do. No, it is violence. It's violent, and we got to. It's justified. Well, it's a matter of definition, but anyway, we were a little disappointed with the thing, and I haven't heard all of it, but they were a little bit. I don't know, and the stuff I said, I was referring to cops as pigs. They were quite shocked. I guess they never heard of the 60s, for one thing. But anyway, check it out for yourself. Some recent resistance outbreaks in Frankfurt. There was a big attack on several large excavators working on a tunnel thing under the Riederwald. We did this in solidarity with the occupation of the Feckenheim forest, which has been going on since the fall of 2021. I did not get a translation. I could not find the translation. This is from Athens. Why burn SpeedX? And that would be interesting to find out why SpeedX. We take responsibility for the arson of vehicles, which vans and trucks that were outside the SpeedX store in Athens. Yeah, I don't read Greek, so I don't know what the answer to that is. And December 1st, this happened in Rome. Let's see. No, at Torino, but this was reported having to do with court proceedings in Rome, where the fate of anarchist comrade Alfredo Cospito is being determined in the early morning hours. We decided to sabotage the traffic lights at numerous intersections in Turin, thus contributing to multiplying the morning chaos of this asphyxiating city. You want to take away our voice, we cut off your light. That's what they say. And on December 6th, there was rioting in Greece's second city, Thessaloniki, north of Athens, after a march for Alexandros Grigoropoulos, who was killed by cops in 2008. And the day before, December 5th, there were extensive riots in Athens and Thessaloniki, protests in many towns around the country after the shooting in the head of a 16-year-old Roma kid, Kostas Fragoulis. And also December 6th, yeah, there was an arson damage to Piraeus Bank ATM. That Piraeus is the port of Athens. As a minimal expression of anger against the murdering state, also in terms of both of the aforementioned people that were shot by police. This is an odd coincidence here, a little funny story. There was at one of the latter, well, no, it was 2010, I think it was, San Francisco Anarchist Book Fair in Golden Gate Park. Lierre Keith had come out with a book called The Vegetarian Myth. She'd been a vegan, I believe. And this was scandalous to the many vegans who were there. And it turns out that a lot of her figures and facts come from the meat industry, which didn't help her case either. Kind of an apologia for meat. And so she was doing this workshop, presenting her book, and 3 different, I would guess, vegans, masked vegans, ran up on the stage from the wings, and each one pied her, and and it broke up the thing. I mean, and people were, I think somebody was throwing stuff from the audience as well. And anyway, I was one of the people who was hanging out front of the hall there in Golden Gate Park, just chatting with people. And she came running out. She screamed, "Somebody call the cops!" And Tom, who's one of the main organizers of Bound Together, person of years, was trying his best to persuade her, "Please don't call the cops. We can deal with this here. Internally we can straighten it out. And I'm sorry you got pied." And anyway, the police showed up almost instantly. I think they were kind of watching things nearby. And she claimed that there was red pepper in the cream pies. And I was standing right next to where she pulled up to the curb, or ran up to the curb where the police cruiser came. And her eyes were not red. I saw no trace of that, but I guess she wanted to make it sound worse than it was. And so the two cops got out, and she said she was attacked in there, and and they said, "Attacked by anarchists?" They were sort of salivating, I think, over that prospect. And she said, "No, vegans." And these cops kind of looked at each other like it wasn't clear at all whether they even knew what vegan means, but they kind of scratched their heads and got back in their cruiser and left. They couldn't pin it on anarchists. I mean, these vegans were anarchists, and almost certainly anyway, but that wasn't the point. That wasn't the point of getting pied. So anyway, long story short, but there was, let's see, this was last Wednesday, a story in It's Going Down. Once again, she got pied. Some years later, she was leading a small turf demo, hate speech against trans folks. And that got a little bit interesting. She was leading this little demo. I think it was only 10 people, or maybe not even 10 people, with Kara Dansky, who's another turf person, trans exclusionary radical feminists. Nothing radical or feminist about it in most people's views. Anyway, Kara Dansky is a favorite with Tucker Carlson, who's a piece of reactionary, white nationalist and the whole 9 yards. So, more and more, just so predictably, these anti-trans people are just indistinguishable from the Trump scum, people like Tucker Carlson. Yeah, they had their little demo, and then nearby they ran into 20 or so oppositionists who then pied her, and apparently these two were even hit with eggs, so they get a little taste of what trans people often go through, much worse than that. Anyway, it's a little bit of the news there, and what's going on in China. I don't know if it rivals what's going on in Iran after almost 3 months now, but front page piece, New York Times article, deep discontent in Chinese youth goes past COVID. So it's not only just about the COVID restrictions there, it's about no future for the young in China. Oh, I got a couple of ads of the week. Been forgetting all about ads of the week. One is Samsung. This is my favorite. This gets the #1 rating, I'd say. It's a television ad. It shows a dad getting off the couch. He says to the child, "Let's go to the playground," and they leave the room. And then when they come back, the mother kind of winks and she says, "I know where the playground is." It's a VR ad. There ain't no playground. There's just the playground of synthetic ersatz stuff via virtual reality. Yeah, the playground. Well, that's where the playground is headed. You don't go outside. God, no. There was a Sunday's New York Times 2-page ad for Boston University, and it read in part, "Everyone needs a strong foundation in data science today. Data science is essential to every discipline today." Yep, here in the Dataverse. That's what you get. There was a very nice piece in the Atlantic Daily last Wednesday by Kate Lindsay called All Alone. Yeah, it's how social media, at first you could say it wasn't so bad. It was for family and friends to connect, but now it's for strangers. That's where it went. TikTok, for example, and yeah, it's a pretty decent piece. And here's the latest from the Girl Scouts. This is pretty unhealthy, even unhealthier than their high-fat cookies. You can get a badge, a uniform patch, if you push the wonders of 5G telephone technology. Yeah, you want to promote that. That's wonderful. That's so healthy. Yeah, we know how cell phones contribute to one's mental health, especially among kids. You know, that's well known. That's got to be a parody, except it isn't a parody. I've seen the source several places. Let's see. There's a piece in the Sunday New York Times called "What Twitter Does to Our Sense of Time" by Jenny Odell. How colonized by sped up time. Yeah, that's exactly right. We go at the speed of technology, which is ever accelerating. There's no sense of what to do about it, but it's pretty good descriptive wise. And I wanted to mention just a little shout out to myself. Quando siamo umani, or When We Are Human, is out in a very nice edition in Italy from Ortica Press, and they want to do the Against Civilization anthology next. Very handsome Italian edition. Okay, one last thing. This was reported, has happened Sunday night, the 11th in San Francisco. There was a comedy performance, Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle, a couple of well-known comics, and Dave Chappelle invited Elon Musk, who was present. He lives in San Francisco, up to the stage. He was loudly booed off the stage. Very heavy booing for many minutes. That's the kind of, maybe people don't just worship these characters who are bringing the plague to everybody and on every level. I think he was surprised. He wasn't pleasantly surprised. Well, back here, Carl and I will be here on the 20th as we edge closer to the happy holidays. Gonna have some new stuff. Sorry that Catherine was prevented from coming, but we'll do that. We'll do the performance second week of November, second Tuesday. Thanks very much for listening. Be well out there.